So this is Psi-Corp becomes a reality. Psi-Corp's from Babylon 5, where they've got a government agency which rounds up all telepaths and forces them to work for the government. So scientists discover all humans can read minds and how you can tap into telepathic abilities. Scientists discover how to unlock telepathic abilities in all humans. Researchers uncover that parts of the brain actually act as a psi inhibitor, meaning it suppresses the natural psychic, telepathic and clairvoyant abilities people have. Scientists have discovered how to unlock telepathic abilities they say are trapped inside the brains of every human. This comes from the Daily Mail, which is the UK's leading newspaper. Researchers in Canada uncovered that parts of the brain actually act as a psi inhibitor, meaning it suppresses the natural psychic, telepathic and clairvoyant abilities people have but don't know about. When scientists turned off this filter by inducing reversible brain lesions in the frontal lobes of the volunteers, that sounds a bit naughty to me, brain lesions, and reversible, it enhanced the patient's psi abilities, allowing them to influence objects with their minds. For example, prostates and hearts. Psi is a phenomenon that includes telepathy. So you might have wondered why I call myself the Psi Lord, because I've mastered Psi. Telepathy, mind-mind connections. So if you watch Babylon 5, which is on Amazon, from the 90s, you'll get a very good picture of what telepaths are used for, which is reading people's minds to see if they're lying, which comes into June in the Bene Gesserit. Clairvoyance, perception of future events or distant objects, which of course the Americans renamed remote viewing. And you'll see there are thousands of American companies offering you remote viewing courses, all of them knowing that there's no chance of you being able to remotely view because, of course, you haven't switched off your psi inhibitor. And I am the UK's leading expert on remote viewing, as well as the world expert on remote sensing, which is and includes, as a subset, telepathy. And, of course, clairvoyance. Precognition, knowing what will happen before it does, which is precognitive remote viewing in American military parlance. And psychokinesis, this is moving objects with your mind. And here in Babylon 5 we've got an episode where a P10 actually is schizophrenic, and his schizophrenic other self is a P12. They've got a grading system in Babylon 5 from 1, useless, to 5, they're good for, scanning people's minds to see if they're lying, up to the P12, who are the Psi-Corp police, the enforcement bureau that go around rounding up telepaths and using extreme measures on everyone and everybody, including shoving mundanes out of airlocks. Mundanes are people with no psi ability in Babylon 5 Pole. So it's really funny that it's based in 2161 or something. That here we've got the inception of government organised psi warfare operators. You don't think the Canadians got a grant from anyone but the military to go into Psi, because of course they know yours truly is the ultimate Psi Lord as of this moment, and has a proven track record of using these up until now phenomena which were not believed in by the skeptics to change the world. Heal Putin, block him from being attacked by the American psychic warfare program, changing history by moving Trump's head out the way of a bullet which I knew about because of precognition, and I could move because with telepathy it's not simply that you read people's minds, but you can take over their minds and make them do anything you damn well please. And of course erase their minds, put in blocks, do a whole plethora of things, all of which is wonderfully explained on Babylon 5, which I've been watching again on the wonderful Amazon, which I adore, because of course Babylon 5 has been charging me up. The filter, this is the filter in the brain, was turned off by a process called repetitive transcranial magnetic stimulation, which uses a non-invasive device to send magnetic waves to specific brain regions. Basically, they screw with your brain centers by blasting them with magnetic waves which are pulsed at certain frequencies to interfere with brain activity, and of course cause these temporary lesions, which I don't like. I don't like the idea of lesions mean damage in the brain. So if you look on a brain scan, you'll see the marks from lesions. So obviously it's not as safe as one would think having temporary lesions, because how temporary are they? 60 years, 100 years? In experiments, you always get experiments, volunteers with these brain lesions develop power to change the outcome of random event generator with their minds. So people with brain damage develop psi, and a random event generator generates a random string of numbers, and you can use a computer to then see how it deviates from randomness the more it's influenced by the psi output of the observant. And the more you can move the random event generator from random, the more powerful is your psychokinesis. And they link this to moving the arrow on a computer screen, which was choosing zeros and ones at random to give the observer something to do. Well, I'll make more zeros, I'll make more ones. You know, so they concentrate on moving the arrow towards the zeros or the ones, and they could actually do this. Now you might think, well, this is all well and good. No, it's much more insidious than that, because when you have a timeline change, the random event generators become extremely less random. When you had 9/11, the random generators became extremely less random. When you had Diana being assassinated by MI6 in the tunnel, allegedly, the random number generators went very, very much less random. So, massive human emotional outbursts, the terrible massacre of 9/11, or the sacrificial slaughter of Diana under the temple in Paris by the royal family on demand by taking over her car, allegedly causes massive negative torsion field emotions, which we see here, change reality. Reality being measured by a random event generator, which of course links to the Mandela effect and people remembering other timelines where things were different, which we can go to later. Lead researcher Morris Friedman, remember Jews have to control everything in the West, of Baycrest Health Sciences. He might be a very good scientist, but let's be clear, if you're not Jewish, you're not going to be leading forefront endeavours in the West. So these findings are potentially transformative for the way we view interactions between the brain and seemingly random events, which aren't random, are they? They are influenced by psi. The brain filter discovery may significantly advance research in the area of psi, helping to bring this phenomena into the realm of mainstream science, Dr. Friedman added. Oh, there we've got a woman with a light in her head. There's the copyright. Scientists have discovered a filter in the human brain which appears to suppress natural psychic abilities. Switch it off, you become psi-able. Luckily, we've got nanotech now that can be stuck into the brain, and this is now a reality. If you don't believe me, look at James Giordano on YouTube, the US's leading expert on using directed energy weapons, nanotech, poisons, bioweapons, and a whole panoply of other devices like magnetic fields, electric fields, all of which can be beamed at you from satellites, to control the brain, where the brain is the battlefield for scientists like James Giordano, who's actually explaining in depth to military personnel how you can take out enemies or change the minds of enemies or get the leaders of enemy nations to go completely doolally using this technology. Zelensky comes to mind with his being kicked out of the White House. Anyway, to continue. The idea that a small number of gifted people have supernatural abilities and even psychic powers has been around for centuries. Throughout history, there have been accounts of famous individuals who allegedly had the power to predict the future, including Nostradamus and Edgar Cayce. However, the 2024 study in the journal Cortex was based on a radical idea that the human brain might actively block psychic abilities, meaning everyone might have access to them. And of course, what led them on the path was Tim Rifat, the cyborg. Scientists noted that if these powers really existed, evolution should have favoured them and made them dominant human traits. Clearly, that hasn't happened, even though many people claim to occasionally experience psychic phenomena, like knowing someone is about to call you before they do it. So Friedman and a team in Toronto began examining a human brain to see if something is actively preventing these powers from coming to the surface. Researchers recruited 108 healthy people and split them into 3 groups, each one receiving RTMS. This is blasting magnetic fields at certain pulses to screw up the brain and give it lesions, which sounds very unsafe to me, but who am I to say? I'm not a medical doctor. On different part of the brain. Typically, RTMS is performed to treat conditions like depression instead of the normal one, which is electroshock therapy. So this would be your more modern version of electroshock therapy. Electroshock therapy basically fries the brain and damages the brain, and in damaging the brain, it resets the brain in a more childlike, seminal manner. And since depression comes from high-level imprinting, life experiences, etc., then your depression vanishes because your brain's basically been fried and it can't remember all the neural pathways that made it depressed in the first place. And of course we've got the famous picture of Taylor Swift having her brain fried to induce this brain damage on the Fortnite video. But the scientists in this experiment used the procedure to disrupt brain activity. So if you're disrupting brain activity, you're damaging the brain. Be it allegedly temporarily, but you're altering it, I would say, on a mildly permanent scale. There's Nostradamus. That's a Getty image. Nostradamus may have had access to his psychic abilities, as many believe he correctly predicted future world events centuries before they happened. One group received this treatment on the right medial, middle, frontal region. So that's right lobe at the front. And another received a placebo treatment which did not change their brains. Neither group saw any change in the psi abilities after RTMS therapy. So frying the front bit of the right lobe of the brain, basically a more modern version of right frontal lobotomy, which is done via the right eye. You stick in a long needle and push it into the brain and then cause massive brain lesions in the frontal cortex of the right lobe by a right frontal lobotomy. Why we call it full frontal lobotomy is when we do the right hand of the brain and the left. It's two lobes. Think of it like two bits of plasticine, two lumps of dough stuck together, and there's your brain. The right brain and the left brain are separate and only connected by, I think, a singular gyrus. But I'm not a brain surgeon. You can talk to brain surgeons, they'll give you all manner of goodies on the brain. Not being a medical doctor, I keep to my field, which is psychic warfare and, of course, physics or mathematical physics of reality. However, the volunteers who received RTMS on the left medial middle frontal region, so the left medial is that left lobe, and that's the middle of the front, which is basically, if you wrap yourself on the middle of the left forehead, there it is. Saw these abilities increase noticeably. So now we know where the processor to shut down Psi is. It's on the left front of the brain, behind the left at the forehead. And of course, instead of using a needle through the left eye, or in putting in electrodes into that part of the brain to fry it, we're using pulsed magnetic fields which disrupt the neuronal network, because of course magnetic fields interfere with the electrical charges going on in the brain, and if you pulse them at the right frequency, you can cause damage to the brain by cyclotron resonance, which moves calcium ions around the cyclotron effect, or you can stick in lithium in the brain, go at the potassium levels, but neuronal activity is dependent upon calcium efflux, and if you pulse magnetic fields at the cyclotron resonance of calcium, you can disrupt the calcium efflux, and you can use the calcium ions basically as a weapon to damage the brain cells. All of this well known to MI5 and the CIA, who use microwave weapons to fry the brains of people and give them the Havana effect. And of course, Elon Musk has been busily launching for the DoD death ray satellites into orbit to be able to do this to anyone, anywhere on the planet, and that's why, of course, Elon Musk has been targeted by moi to drive him as mad as Zelensky. So, to continue, this study confirmed our hypotheses, Friedman said in a statement from the Bio Foundation, which supported the research, of course supported by the military. Individuals with neurological or reversible TMS-induced frontal lesions may present a useful group for detection and replication of this phenomenon. The left medial middle frontal region plays a crucial role in higher brain functions. Scientists have found that this area of the frontal lobe contributes to executive functioning, which includes planning, making decisions, and working towards our goals. That's basically being a good citizen, a good person in your management booth. And here, from the sinking of the Titanic to the launch of Apple TV, the historic moments that were predicted decades before they occurred. That's pretty cognitive remote view. You can read more by going to dailymail.com. Thoroughly recommend it. And if you want more, you can pay them to get more of the stories. Highly recommended. I visit dailymail.com every day. So, it also appears to help people focus their attention and suppress irrelevant or inappropriate impulses, or to suppress silent knowledge, which shamans, men of power have, where we just know everything in bundles, just comes up. I know that, I know that, I know that, I know that. So this is the area of the brain that suppresses it. Now Friedman suggests the left medial middle frontal region may be suppressing much more than human urges. And of course, how do shamans, men of power, get to remote sensing, that is silent knowledge? They become totally ruthless. If you're totally ruthless, your brain is constantly generating negative torsion fields. And these negative torsion fields then of course accrue in that bit of the brain that you use in normal life, which is the left frontal lobe, executive functioning, planning, making decisions, and working towards our goals, which is people in the workplace, or I'm off out to the restaurant, and how am I getting there, and how am I getting back, and blah blah blah. And of course, all the people on their phone doing executive functioning. So when you're a shaman achieving total ruthlessness, which is explained in the power of silence, you get silent knowledge because the negative torsion fields are concentrated in this part of the brain and damage this part of the brain, making you telepathic or able to remotely sense. In this case, the Akashic records, which is the knowledge of the human race, past, present, future, precognitive Akashic remote viewing, which of course is Taylor Swift in the Fortnite video, typing away on her typewriter with all the dead people, typing away their life's knowledge, which then gets stuck in the Akashic record, which is in the Fortnite video, just by chance. It also focuses their attention, so your internal dialogue is run from this part of your brain, and when you switch it off, you get psi abilities according to Chambers, and suppress irrelevant or inappropriate impulses, which of course is silent knowledge, and getting knowledge that doesn't make sense to your executive functioning. Now Friedman suggests the left medial middle frontal region may be suppressing much more of the human urges. The world's fascination with unlocking their psychic gifts is certainly growing in the recent year. Not in recent year, in the recent year. In fact, a new podcast called The Telepathy Tapes replaced the Joe Rogan Experience as the #1 most popular audio show on Spotify in January. I don't use Spotify because, of course, I love YouTube. YouTube's much better than Spotify, for music anyway. Co-hosted by journalist and filmmaker Kai Dickens and psychiatrist Dr. Diane Hennessy Powell, the show explores the profound abilities of people with autism who can't speak. Autism, of course, is brain damage, which can be attributed to medical interventions. These abilities, according to Dickens and Dr. Powell, include telepathy, access to infinite knowledge, that's remotely viewing the Akashic record and precognitively viewing the Akashic record so you get what happens in the future, and the power to visit heaven, which of course would be the ability to see interdimensionals, because they would think angels are interdimensionals, which is interdimensional remote viewing. On a recent episode of the Joe Rogan Experience, Rogan said he listens to the show and believes some telepathy is real. I'm only on episode 2, but it's really fascinating, man, he added. As for Michel de Nostradam, or Nostradamus, he was a French apothecary and seer who published prophecies from 1550 until his death in 1568. Did it in quatrains because you get birds at stake if he didn't hide them in useless riddles. He was credited with predicting some of history's most noteworthy events, including the Great Fire of London and the rise of Adolf Hitler. Was it just a lucky guess or true psi abilities? Humans may soon be able to unlock the answer hiding in our minds. Or answers hiding in our minds, preferable. Now, I did say this was due to yours truly, because of course all the intelligence agencies know I'm the ultimate Psi Lord and can do all this stuff. So why would they research into brain damage unlocking Psi? Well, at the age of 6, my stupid primary school teacher allowed me to take PE after I'd cut the tendon in my left big toe, and the school promised that I wouldn't be doing any running because if you cut the tendon in your big left toe, you keep tripping up. And it was race to the brick wall and back, and yours truly ran full tilt into the brick wall with his head. Specifically, the left part of his head. So I've now got a deviated septum where the left part of my sinuses is much bigger than the right side, because the left side sinuses were all smashed to fuck, and my nose was completely flat. And the plastic surgeons at East Grinstead, which used to put back together the World War II fighter pilots who were burnt to a crisp. I actually had I think an Austrian girl in isolation across from me who'd been burnt to a crisp in her father's castle, where a night dress had caught fire and she'd been fried to a crisp. So she literally was a crisp. So that's why they sent her to East Grinstead, because that was the world's leading hospital on plastic surgery, because they'd rebuilt the faces and bodies of all the British fighter pilots who were fried when Luftwaffe bullets exploded their engines. And of course, if you're in a fighter, then the flames are blown back into the cockpit, and within seconds you look like Wile E. Coyote who's been flamethrowered. So the doctors there said they'd never seen such horrific injuries on such a young child. So obviously I took the record for the worst facial injuries they'd ever seen on a young kid. And if you're going to develop psychic abilities by taking out the left medial frontal lobe of the brain, then why not run into a brick wall with the left side of your forehead and nose and smash it to pulp? I think there was a skin flap hanging over my lip. So they rebuilt my face, and I was not the same. As my mother said, you were not the same after the accident. No, I was not the same after the accident. I can't even remember most of 7 or even 8 or even 9. I think I started coming back to some sort of semblance of consciousness around 10. But nevertheless, past my 11 plus, so obviously the entire neural network of the left side of my brain, which does all this rational stuff, was totally lesioned to fuck by running full tilt into a brick wall. So you can see now why the scientists went, well, how come Tim Rifat's the world's leading expert on remote sensing, and the UK's leading expert on remote viewing, and Putin and co are running to him for protection from psychic warfare? Well, what's different about him compared to other people? Well, the difference is he's had the left medial frontal lobe of his brain totally lobotomized via running into a brick wall. Now, let's look at the implications of this. Well, if you can stick in nanotech or use this technique on the brains of your military, and remember all US military are full of nanotech, you can then activate the nanotech in that specific part of the brain to give lesions on the left medial frontal cortex, so they all develop the ability to do telepathy, clairvoyance, and more importantly, psychokinesis. So, we come to the scary part now, which is, if you watch The Witches of Mayfair, I've watched series 1 with the actress, Alexandra Daddario. She's been in lots of horror films. She's rather good. Huge eyes. Anyway, she plays a neurosurgeon, Dr. Rowan Fielding, and she learns she's the heiress to a dynasty of powerful witches. And of course, at the start of these shows, when she gets angry, she uses psychokinesis to burst a blood vessel in the brain of people she's pissed off with and kills them. So psychokinesis to kill is fully described in the Mayfair Witches, which I rather like, and if you like witchcraft and stuff like me, yeah, I'm on series 2 now. And of course, she's served by a demon, and of course I'm served by Lucifer. And I'm not saying that Anne Rice's Mayfair Witches has anything to do with me or plagiarism, but obviously we're both thinking the same way, taking out people by blowing blood vessels in their brain using psychokinesis, which I've talked about ad nauseum, and of course having demons to serve you. And why have demons to serve you? We get Lucifer to serve you. All we need now is babyfying Anton LaVey's offspring, and we can install Lucifer in one of the children. I like the Antichrist. But that's another story. So, if you want to look at just one of the ways you use psychokinesis to give people life dysfunction, the Defense Intelligence Agency call this not remote killing, but remote manipulation. And the guy who wrote about it in his book, and the Defense Intelligence Agency's efforts to shut him up, David Morehouse, also had frontal brain trauma, which then allowed him to develop these powers. So David Morehouse also is a recipient of frontal brain trauma.